It has been my absolute pleasure to take you guys through this journey of creating an animation from start to finish through a series of live streams where you've watched everything happen and seen how it was done, from the thumbnails all the way through to the finished final color. And it is a fairly lengthy piece of animation at that. We are 6, 7, 8, all one scene, right? No quick cutting. This is the real test of the animator. How can you make your work interesting and good for a sustained period of time? So we have got 20, almost 22 seconds, right? 22 seconds worth of animation. I've talked about thumbnailing, and really in my pro archive, when we do that long sustained dialogue, I take you through the thumbnailing process and you see me working out the thumbnailing process and then putting my thumbnails in and testing the thumbnails and seeing how they all work together in relation with each other, right? That's the kind of professional way of doing it. But for demonstration purposes, what will make this much more interesting is I'm going to take these thumbnails and I'm going to work them out as animation in a straight ahead way on top to figure out, so you can follow the process as my brain work goes between okay, how do we get from this to this? Okay, obviously he's grabbed the glass, but how is he going to grab the glass, right? Now I could be writing notes here and then playing around, but rather than doing that off screen, I'm going to animate that and we're going to work out the middle parts. Each little thumbnail between the next is going to be like one scene. Like all of these little thumbnails I'm going to treat as if they were separate scenes. I'm going to kind of like do secondary action of secondary action of secondary action if I have to really overcook this little piece of animation, to really make it really funny. So even just between these two thumbnails here, this and this, we've got a really nice little introduction to the character's personality, right? So the thumbnails are good, but I've showed you how those thumbnails are just a starting point, right? I'm gonna think, right? So his head is going this way, so I may want to have his eye line flip the other way, right? And there's gonna be more of a rotation towards us, right? So these are the things I'm playing with now, right? I'm not just simply copying a pose. I'm trying to really look for good arcs and movement contrasts that really kind of balance what I'm doing. Watch his nose like it's a bouncing ball. That we all know, everything's a bouncing ball, but just watch what happens, right? So his head comes up and then it comes down, right? And then his eyebrows come down afterwards, but then the final little bounce is the little hand rattle, like it's a chain reaction, right? His eyes are as his head comes up, his eyebrows go down, right? But then as his head goes down, his eyes and his eyebrows go up, right? Then when his eyes close and they play catch up, it's like a little kind of chain reaction, opening up, bounce, causing these fingers, right, to do that as a settle to a stop. Apologies for interrupting this great free content that I'm giving you. I know you're enjoying it. I'll be quick, as I'm only addressing a select few of you who really are interested in truly transforming yourselves into real animators. This, as you know, is a tiny condensed version of a 14-part live stream seminar series where you can watch and discover the truth about animating in full and proper detail. Just click on the link in the description and you'll be taken to this page where you can purchase the entire archive for less than the price of a games console. So it's entirely up to you. If you're obsessive about becoming a real deal animator and finally want to see the light at the end of the tunnel, then you'll probably want this. And the rest of you can get back to this video and enjoy the free content. Thanks. Alright, so you can see that I'm pushing the angles of the pose and I'm hunching him over more. I'm trying to capture what I like about the thumbnail, but then it doesn't necessarily, it's not 100% relating. Because as I said, let's have a look at this animation once more. As I said, from getting from each pose to each pose, so from getting to this pose to this pose to this pose, I've just told you that there's a whole little story. So there's an eye roll, there's a grab, there's a glance, there's a sigh, there's a head shake, right? Then we hit that, right? So my brain has to think, okay, well, this is the next pose that I've got to get to. Now we've got to go from hair to hair, right? But I'm not going to have him overdo it. Like, I'm not going to have him like look there and then go, oh, maybe like think to himself or overdo the acting, because we've already done so much. So I'm going to have him, I'm going to have him just do kind of like a double blink and then get into this pose, right? So the only thing that we're going to have him do that's like a little bit of extra business is a double blink. Otherwise it's just too much. I think that's good. I want that pose to read. I think something big is what's needed, because hair, it's not, nothing is, I mean, the eye roll is big, but everything is very subtle, very restrained. We've got big exaggerated eye movements, but that's it, right? Everything, even a little head shakes. I think this is the first step into the big thing, this kind of squash and stretch there. So I think it's good to do a big move here to accentuate the action. So he's here, he looks back, like, what's this, eh? What's this guy on? Right? He looks back there like that, right? Okay, so that's what I'm gonna animate. So he's here, he looks here, he's just like, you gotta be kidding me, right? Is this guy for real, right? So we just added a few poses in there. So we've gone from this pose to this pose. We've got a whole new thing going on with a head turn, and now we're going to start breaking it down. So it's like, what? Because you're watching me doing incredibly tight animation, and you see how tight it looks, right, when you're looking at it like this, right? But you see what it starts as, right? In a way there where it's a little bit off model, but I don't care. It's giving me a feel for what I want for the movement, and then I'll rein it in, right? So we can see that sudden direct look there, and then it goes down, right? Boom. So the fist first, then that. I like that. So let's take a look at that. Looks behind him, looks again, laughs, looks there, blinks, looks back, punches the desk down. Perfect. So we've got our guy here. He's rolling his eyes, he's reaching for his cup, he sighs to himself, he shakes his head, he notices something behind, he looks there, he says, huh, get a load of this guy. And he's like, gets there, bang, like that. I think if this was going to be color, he'd slowly go red here, like, ooh, bang, like those old Donald Duck cartoons. Right, so that's that. It's like, oh. Yeah, that sigh is going to really sell that punch. Right, so notice how it's just literally what I'm doing is like, this is like a rectangle, and the rectangle is now like this way, right? So all the while its head's slowing in, right? This is subtle stuff. Here we've got the little kind of change of expression as he looks at his glass. Let me try and rough out this guy shrugging his shoulders. So I'm going to be doing a complete piece of straight ahead work here. I think I can bring his head a little higher, right? This is like doing a new thumbnail, this pose, right? It's like doing a new thumbnail. So I might talk about cheating form and volume. I might focus this stream a lot on getting between this key and this key, right? So we tie this down so you can see how I cheat the shapes so it looks like the same form and volume, because this is a difficult drawing to put on model and to get the gesture and the acting right. See, I could rough the whole thing out like that and it'll look great, but I'll be selling you guys short, because the problem of how to get this on model it's difficult. So that's the shrug that we're gonna do. So he's there. So remember, you're watching this stream because something in you wants to improve as an animator, right? Or there's something about the creative process of animation, doing animation, that intrigues you, that interests you, right? So you are basically, when I ask you who's the real animator, it really is you, right? Is the first thing I'll need to break down, and I'm going to break down loose. Okay, good. So we got this, 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 this. Yeah, now we're seeing, now we're naturally getting into that drink with the nice bobbing, bouncing. See, this over-exaggerated up, down, bouncy, bouncy movement suddenly becomes softer and more natural as we start working this stuff out. That's very natural, that. I really like that. So he breathes, looks there, shrugs, and drinks. Okay, now he's gonna notice something and he's going to then spit the drink out. Now, I'm not going to use this thumbnail as usual. This is a good drawing, okay, right? But it's not an animated drawing, because now I've it's a thumbnail, and if you just settle for that because you think it looks good, you're selling yourself short. See, back in my industry days, I would have done that and thought, wow, man, that drawing is so good. It's so much better than a lot of what my peers can do. So I'm just going to put that as my key and I'll animate into and out of it. But now I feel I've got something so much stronger with this pose here. So I've put an extra thing in there to make that last, right? So you can really see the puh, right? Okay. Yeah, I can see that's going to look great. That is going to be so much fun. Puh. Drinks and then goes up, puh, like that. Okay, so that's how far we've got. I'm going to have him kind of come out of this action a bit, right? So I'm going to draw another frame because he's in the he's kind of like spitting stuff out. The puh, like that, right? See how I'm always looking for the arcs of what I'm going to be doing, right? So his head is going to arc, his hand's going to arc, his arm's going to arc. We're going to figure that out. We're going to figure all that stuff out. Now the rest of the live stream, we're going to figure out, we're going to break this down, right? So between here and here, right, I would just have thirds, right? So there'd be two in between there like that, okay? And then between here and here, right, I would have a half, and then I would have maybe something like this. So 1, 2, 3 from the half, 1, 2, 3 in between there and there, right? So that's what I would do. I'd be like immediately. That's how so I come out of that on thirds because we want to come out fairly quickly, but we then want to slow into this, right? So that's how it'll work. I'm going to tell you why. Why did I move this hair? Why did I arc his head back? Why did I bring his wrist back and bring his arm down? And it's all this arcing, right? It's an anticipation, right? These are two of the laws. Those of you who see yourselves as the real deal, listen, okay? Focus. What I'm doing here is an anticipation of an anticipation, right? He's going to arc down, and then we want to come up here. But he's going to have to turn his head this way, and then he'll turn his head this way, and then so it could be 1, 2, 3, like, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to have his head turned this way. His arm is just literally going to open out on itself. It's going to be a straightforward arm opening out on itself. So now we're going to talk about what we call halves and thirds, okay? So, or possibly even favors, right? We're going to talk about the law of slowing in and slowing out. The first real key that I'm going to have, his head's going to be this way. So I have to think about what speed do I want his hand to be moving at, right? Because the next head is going to be this way. And then the final head is going to be this one here, right? So we're going to go from 1 to 2 to 3. You're going to see me do these 3 drawings. I'm explaining to you what's in my head as I naturally animate. Can you see how I talked about the varying speeds of the body part? Even at this early stage, how naturally everything fits into place. Like his hand is already out there as he's making this face. Everything's moving at the right speed. He spits, he looks, and he kind of like, oh, right? So here the snout it's got enough drag on it where it doesn't feel like it's rubber or it's waving, right? And when I draw that in tighter, it will look tighter, right? So now we, even without an in-between, we feel the impact of that, right? So let's have a look at how that works out. Perfect, right? We can come down and we want it to be a quick movement, but it's enough to soften it on ones from being a awful kind of pop slap. I may throw in a few, like, so over here, between here and here, I will have a long slow in. So he goes dun, then he'll turn his head, right? It's gonna be a slow action, so you're watching me just scrub as if it's all one thing. When I play it back to you when we finish, it's gonna be very different. Now, we're gonna spend a lot of time here, but I'm just gonna put, like, this is gonna be a very slow movement that I will put on thirds. So between here and here, we're gonna spend a lot of time, right? But the hand is barely moving. Actually, I wanted to put it on thirds, but I may have to put it on a half because we're cheating that nose. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly introduce his knuckle, and I'm going to play with this part of the nose here on the mug, like this. Right? Okay, right, yeah, so that's good. We can see what we were doing with that. We can really feel the pull and the tension on that, right? But this is going to be really slow, like we're going to milk this, right? Dun. Those are essentially the key drawings and extremes and breakdowns, with the exception of the little nose waggle, but I'll talk you through it. You'll see I very quickly roughed out something straight ahead, because animation like this should be done straight ahead, right? And I've had to change a key and I've had to do all that kind of stuff. We are going to talk about how to handle straight ahead animation, how to suddenly get all this so the volumes are intact and to make sense of it. So first and foremost, I had to change a key. So these are the keys that I have created, right? Now you can see that this hand is more or less staying where it is, and then it goes down like that. I'm not sure that I want that, right? Okay, so this is the new hand key that we've got here. Perfect. Now I can see that little bounce in the hand. Then we got the toing like that. So the boing right that there. Now, I was going to originally just settle him down into this. But I'm missing a trick. As we finish, why don't I have him like go like just one final look there and then like one little head shake. So you see the systematic understanding of arcing, timing and slowing in and slowing out. In the basics archive we do a pendulum swing and a pendulum settle to a stop, right? We talk about the timing and the hang time. We do a figure of 8 pendulum swing. So it's the same thing. Like look at that nose, it's like a pendulum. Yeah, that's fine. Once that's in between, that's gonna look good, right? So we've got this. Just watch his nose. It's either a bouncing ball or a swinging pendulum, and it's following all those basic principles, but you're never really going to get to this badass level unless you really verse yourself in those fundamentals. Even his eyes are like bouncing balls, having fun squash and stretch going on here, right? So you're normally meant to bring the eyes down with the lids, but here I made them deliberately like bouncing balls because I'm kind of having my own little in-joke that this is the timing of his nose is like a weighted ball rattling to a stop, or a swinging pendulum, and his eyes are like bouncing balls. So I'm almost having my own little bit of fun in there as I'm doing that. Here's the first pencil test that we did. The timing is very, very varied. So if we look at the pencil test, we'll see that that sudden turn is so quick in comparison to his other movements, and it creates a fantastic contrast. So he's here, he takes it there like this, then suddenly, boom, just around like that. The quick little head turns, the abrupt. Then here we're going slow again, right? Slow, and then I'll show you where I start slowing in on twos. Like there's a ultra slow in there where it's kind of like to really emphasize that pull and contrast between that. What I've done here is I've held this for almost 6 frames, right, before there's any movement. So then we get the movement. Now all of this is on twos, right? Because I want it to be slower. Then we hold again, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 frames. Why 4 frames? Because 5, 6 is where we're going to get into the squash blink. So it's going to take a quarter of a second to blink. I'm going to hold it for 4 and then go into the blink, right? Then I'm going to hold this for 2 frames and then this is just going to be for 1 frame, right? A quick movement. Then back on twos as we roll our eyes, right? Like that. So most of this animation is on twos with just a little bit on ones where he's putting his fingers back and where his eyes are just coming up out of the blink. We switch completely to ones. Now this movement has to be entirely on ones. As I'm scrubbing, it feels slow because the scrubbing makes it slow. But this is all on ones, right? To give it that feel, that zing feel. Bangs his hand down, all on ones, right? Like that. Then we switch to twos as we raise the head up, right? To give it a slow movement here. So again, 6 frames for the head rise, a quarter of a second to raise his head up. But notice how there's hardly any movement, but we spend a quarter of a second just doing that. And here we get through it all super fast, right? So you can see him going through the various motions. So there's so much varied speed to his movements, and there's no floaty slow-ins, right? It's like everything's got a kind of much more naturalistic and stop-starty feel to it, which is what I wanted for this animation. There's a painting by an artist called Edward Hopper called Nighthawks, and my animation is very much based on the 50s, 40s Donald Duck kind of cartooning. So I knew that I wanted something along those lines. And then I painted it, but I had to test the colors. So we have got the table, we've got the badger sitting in there, right? So I had this in Storyboard Pro, and if we turn that on, we can see that there's a color key. Now, I noticed that some of the colors weren't working. I wanted him to have black eyebrows, but I feel the contrast, his facial expressions are a lot more interesting if we can actually see his eyebrows. I want him to have proper badger colors, so I've had to kind of work out. We miss some of the things like his finger, unless they're contrasted on the white, which is why silhouette is so important. So here was the original colors, right? So I'm like, yeah, it's kind of muddy, murky, it's what I wanted, but it's a little bit, I wanted the muted kind of old school cell shading muted color look, but it's not, I'm feeling like it needs to sit together a bit better than I envisioned, because I've changed things like giving him a more whiter eyebrows and stuff like that. I then decided to put a little bit of blue, the similar color scheme, shall we say, all kind of sitting together, grading the colors well. And this bluing of the guy actually enabled us to see his hands and kind of brighten up his colors a little bit, so we can see his movements a bit more. He was blending too much into the background there, so we whacked up the contrast, and we have now got a more a better version which has got the same effects. It has been my absolute pleasure to take you guys through this journey of creating an animation from start to finish, through a series of live streams where you've watched everything happen and seen how it was done, from the thumbnails all the way through to the finished final color. And it is a fairly lengthy piece of animation at that. We are 6, 7, 8, all one scene, right? No quick cutting. This is the real test of the animator. How many, can you make your work interesting and good for a sustained period of time? So we have got 20, almost 22 seconds, right? 22 seconds worth of animation.